Hey guys, welcome to Thrive Bites Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Colin Zhu, and thank you so much for listening on. You could have been anywhere in the world and you decided to spend just a few moments of your precious time, and we greatly appreciate it. Here on the podcast, we talk about three things: living a plant-powered lifestyle, enhancing emotional resilience, and creating a thriving mindset. And I interview a range of passionate guests such as physicians, dietitians, coaches, entrepreneurs, and many more. And please join me as I deliver these engaging, informative, and high-valued conversations for you. So what are you waiting for? Come on inside. Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Thrive Bites Podcast. We have a wonderful, wonderful episode for you today. I'll be interviewing Dr. Neal Barnard. He is the president of Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine, and he has so many accolades behind his name, but he's really, really passionate about advocating, teaching, and spreading the word about nutrition, preventive medicine, and ethical research. And so join me on this episode as we are talking about his new book, The Power Foods Diet, and you don't want to miss this, and I'll see you guys inside. Okay, guys. Well, welcome to another episode of Thrive Bites Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Colin Zhu, and thank you so much for being here with us. You could have been anywhere in the world, and you decided to be here with us, and we are greatly, greatly appreciative of that. Today, I have the wonderful, esteemed pleasure and privilege to present our next guest for today. He is Dr. Neal Barnard, and I'm a big fan. That's number one. Number two is, but not the very least, he's the president of Physicians Committee for Responsible Medicine, as well as an adjunct professor of medicine at George Washington University School of Medicine in Washington, D.C. Dr. Barnard has led numerous research studies investigating the effects of diabetes, body weight, hormonal symptoms, and chronic pain, which includes a groundbreaking study of dietary interventions in type 2 diabetes funded by the NIH, which stands for National Institutes of Health, that paves the way to help potentially reversible conditions for many, many patients. He's authored more than 100 scientific publications and 20 books for medical and lay readers, and also is the editor-in-chief of Nutrition Guide for Clinicians, a textbook made available to all U.S. medical students. As president of Physicians Committee, he's led many, many programs advocating for preventive medicine, good nutrition, and higher ethical standards in research. This type of research contributed to the acceptance of plant-based diets in the dietary guidelines for Americans. In 2015, he's been named Fellow of the American College of Cardiology, as well as in 2016, founded Barnard Medical Center in Washington, D.C., as a model for making nutrition a routine part of all medical care. Working with the Medical Society of DC and the American Medical Association, Dr. Barnard has authored key resolutions, now part of the AMA policy, calling for a new focus on prevention and nutrition in federal policies and in medical practice. And in 2018, received the Medical Society of District of Columbia's Distinguished Service Award, and he has also hosted 4 PBS television programs on nutrition and health. We can spend all day long talking about his accolades, but without further ado, please welcome Dr. Barnard. Hello.
Hi, great to see you. Thank you for including me.
Well, thank you so, so much. It is a wonderful pleasure for you to be here on the show. I know that you are a busy man, and how are you doing? Are we in Washington, D.C.?
We're in Washington, D.C., our nation's capital, so while DC is still here, I'm glad to talk to you from here.
I know a lot of things are happening, in the federal level. We have this year, at the time of recording, we have new elections going on. We have the Farm Bill, that also is going on as well. So a lot of things are happening. So very, very, very exciting. So without further ado, I'd like to talk about the origin story, the superhero origin story. And you are a key advocate, very tireless advocate for nutritional education for medical students, as well as healthcare professionals alike. But for you individually, Dr. Barnard, what were the series of moments that led for you to study more nutrition?
Oh, well, first of all, thank you for Thank you for including me in the program, and thank you for asking about that. I did not have much of an interest or knowledge about nutrition when I was growing up. I grew up in North Dakota, Fargo, and I come from a long line of cattle ranchers. But what started this process for me was probably a series of events the year before I went to medical school. I was working in Minneapolis, and my job was in the hospital morgue. And my job was to help the pathologists who, when somebody died in the hospital, they would do an autopsy to determine the cause of death. So I would weigh the organs and clean up and do all the various things that a pathology assistant had to do. So one day we had a person die in the hospital of a massive heart attack, probably from eating hospital food, but that's a different question. So anyhow, the pathologist knew that I was going to be in medical school the next year. And so every autopsy became sort of a lecture. And he removed a section of ribs from the chest of this man. And he took the ribs and he put them on the chest, on the tabletop. And he said, now look inside. And the heart had its arteries that you could see on the surface. He says, those are the coronary arteries. They called coronary because they crown the heart. He was giving me this lecture. Anyway, he sliced one open. And inside, instead of it being a wide open tube, it was just filled with atherosclerotic plaque. Which, if you feel it, it's like a pipe stem. I mean, it's all calcified. So he would say, bacon and eggs, Neal. The carotid arteries to the brain had the same plaques in them. The arteries to the kidneys, same story. So this, for me, was quite an education. So he left the room at the end of the exam, and it was my job to clean up. So I took the ribs, which were on the table, and I put the ribs in the chest, tried to make them fit with the other ribs, and then I would sew up the skin and everything else. It was about 2:00. And I hadn't had any lunch. So I went up to the cafeteria, and the only thing left to eat was some ribs. And I just looked at that. And I thought, that looks just like a dead body. And I thought, and it smells like dead bodies smell. And I thought that smelled like the body. And I realized suddenly that is a body. And I couldn't eat it. I didn't become vegetarian on the spot, but I could not eat that. And that just kind of stayed with me. And then as time goes on, you know what it's like. Something will push you a little bit in this direction. And you start to become aware of all the different issues. And those included the health aspects of eating bacon and eggs and cholesterol-laden foods, and the links with obviously cardiovascular disease was kind of the granddaddy. But then we started learning about links with cancer, links with diabetes, links with all sorts of other things. And then I started to also realize the animal issues, which had meant nothing to me growing up, because I had my own 20-gauge shotgun, and I drove animals to slaughter with my uncle and my dad. And I didn't think about these things, but I started to think, these are real. And of course, the environmental issues have come in, and I just slowly but surely did what a lot of people are doing nowadays, is I got the animals off my plate. And they haven't been on my plate now for 4 decades, and I have not missed them. Awesome.
That's a very unique experience to have. You said ranching with your family members?
Well, my dad, I have to say, my dad hated the cattle business, and he left. He left the cattle business. He went to medical school, and he became he did. He became the diabetes expert for Fargo, North Dakota. So he never encouraged us to go into medicine, but he also didn't encourage us to go into farming. So what can you say?
Yeah. That's very interesting, because a lot of what you said in terms of the ribs in the cafeteria and then the ribs from the cadaver, right? It's just, you just put two and two together. And it is moments like that. Sometimes it's an accumulation of moments. Sometimes it could be just very shocking. And then that would set you on the path. But I like what you said, because having that personal experience growing up, it connects you from where your food came from and how it arrives at a plane. And I think a lot of Americans, we're very good at creating that disconnection, or just really hiding it from view. And when we don't have that connection, we just think of it as just food, perceivably as food, and we just ingest it. And, we don't know how that affects us for all of that. So I think having the conversations of culinary experts and farmers and talking about that connection is also very, very important.
I certainly agree.
My next question to you is, you've had so many different areas of focus in terms of nutrition and preventive medicine that you've contributed thus far. What would you say you are the most passionate for or most proud of thus far? I have a guess, but I want to see how you would answer.
Well, I guess what we're most known for, perhaps, is our work on diabetes, because it was in 2003, which is 21 years ago. NIH funded us to do kind of the definitive study. And that was because we had done prior work where we had shown that when people go on a completely plant-based diet, instead of the conventional diabetes diet, which cuts calories and it cuts carbohydrate and it's trying to sort of starve off the weight and starve down your glucose. Compared to that, a low-fat plant-based diet with no limit on carbohydrate, no limit on calories, was 3 times better at reducing hemoglobin A1C. That's what we showed when we were funded by NIH, and that got people's attention. I want to thank NIH, and I want to thank the American Diabetes Association, because they were the first ones to publish it. And then we presented it at ADA, and it became actually quite controversial at first, because we were challenging the idea. We were basically saying you don't have to have a calorie chart or a food scale. You don't need these things anymore. And we were also saying something that was even more controversial, was just that diabetes can go away. Because at that time, people would say, well, diabetes, once you got diabetes, you will always have diabetes. Mm-hmm. Oh, diabetes is a progressive disease. And that was said not for mean reasons. It was said because diabetes is a killer. I mean, diabetes can cause cardiovascular complications that will take your life. And so doctors wanted patients to take it seriously. And they would say, once you have diabetes, you'll always have diabetes. You've got to monitor yourself. You got to take your blood sugar. You got to look after your bodies, do your foot exams so you don't have an infection, and test yourself and take your medications and do all these things. And that's all true. However, it was back, first year of our study, I saw something I'd never seen before, which was a man who'd had diabetes for 4 years. His A1C was 9.5. He came in something not good. He had a terrible family history, and he came in saying, I need help, because if I don't, I'm going to go blind. Mm-hmm. I'm going to lose a leg. A year later, his blood sugar, he was off all his medications, and his A1C was down to 5.3. And this, I got to tell you, when I got his lab slip, I closed my office door, and I had to pace around for about 10 minutes to think, can I tell him that he is cured of type 2 diabetes? Mm-hmm. Because that does not happen, or so we thought. Now, we can laugh about that now, because you've seen, we see this all the time nowadays. We see a great many people where their diabetes is reversed, but that was never an expectation. Mm-hmm. With medications, that was never an expectation with the old-fashioned kinds of diets. And then, so that to me is important. And then we've also gone on to work with other really wonderful colleagues, our friends at Yale University's Department of Endocrinology, where Gerald Schulman and Kit Peterson and others have shown why this diet works, because we now know about the things that cause insulin resistance, that the buildup of fat particles from the foods you eat, that buildup inside your muscle cells, fat inside your liver, stops insulin from working normally. Who knew? Well, you get the animal fat out of your diet, it's going to work better. So anyhow, those are things that have been very meaningful to me. But as you said, we've explored a great many other areas, and each of which is the surprise of its own.
Yeah. I learned recently, I was interviewing your good friend Chuck Carroll, and he told me that the organization is not, you guys are very proud in terms of not taking any type of funding from any type of large entities, and you really focus on ethical research, because animal welfare, it doesn't need to happen in that manner to be able to protect innocent animal lives while at the same time practicing good ethical science. So I thought that was going to be your answer, but yes, the diabetes is also a good answer as well.
Well, I should say, first of all, we're not proud of anything. What we're doing is we're fighting a war here. So we're not proud of our victories. We're just glad to have them. And there are many, many more victories to be had. Regarding animal research, we don't do it. It's obviously cruel. But beyond that, I am not trying to study a diabetes equivalent in a rat. and to try to apply the results to humans. In fact, that's what launched us in this area in the first place. There was a diabetes foundation that was tired of funding rad experiments that were going nowhere. And they said to us, help us design a better approach. So we study human beings. And we have methods to do that. I mean, through magnetic resonance spectroscopy, I could see inside your body, and I can quantify the intramyocellular lipid, the fat inside your muscle cells. I don't have to go to a biological supply house and get some rodents. And, I mean, we're at a different level.
Mm-hmm.
The second thing is about not taking money. Who we don't take money from is the food industry.
Mm-hmm.
So there are scientists who take money from the dairy industry, the meat industry, or whatever. And we not only don't take their money, but we don't take money from even good food industries. Like if somebody is selling broccoli and they want to give us money to study, we wouldn't take that, because that would create bias.
Mm-hmm.
And we are doing our work in a careful way, diminishing bias to the extent that we can, so we don't take their money.
Yeah.
That said, if a huge foundation, a research foundation, wants to give us a check, we'll gladly take it, because biases wouldn't come with that.
Mm-hmm. The reason why I bring up that point is because we live in an era, as you know, of an overload of mis and disinformation. And for me, having been, just 100% clinical care, patient care for my career, I see it and hear it all the time. Before they arrive to my doorstep or office door, they say, I've already Googled everything. And a lot of times it's either Dr. Google or social media. And so for me, it's just a tidal wave that we have to fight, right? And so one of the things that we were talking about is not just any paper and then you just cite it and you say, hey, this is what the study shows. There's a lot of components to that. And a part of that is funding that we were talking about. So that's the reason why I bring up that point, because a lot of lay people, they don't have the background or education or expertise to be able to decipher. It's basically decoding another language to be able to say, oh, this is good research, this is not good research.
Well, I mean, our research team is good. And Dr. Hannah Kaliova is a brilliant endocrinologist. She's our director of clinical research, and the other researchers on the team are first class. And I'm happy to say that our work is published in the top journals. And so we, in turn, are asked by those journals to review other research projects. And we are asked to lecture at the Mayo Clinic or at Yale or at Harvard or other places. And so that has, the team has gained the respect of the community, which is important, because a generation ago, vegetarian diets didn't have quite the science base that they have today, and they might not have had the quality of research either. And we've been able to bring that, and not just us. I mean, if you look at Dean Ornish's research, for example, it's brilliant work, and there are others who are contributing as well.
Yeah, definitely. So let's shift gears and talk about your book, Power Foods Diet. Very, very exciting. So out of the books that you have authored thus far, how does the Power Foods Diet compare and or contrast to the other books that you've written? And why now? Why bring this topic? Because it's centered, correct me if I'm wrong, weight loss. Why now?
I've written quite a number of books, and each one is designed to be a tool that takes information that I think is important, but that people don't have. So I've written books about how to protect the brain from Alzheimer's disease, for example, or how to fight pain, or how to fight what I'm going to call addictive foods. Each one has a set of tools that I think are important. But it's, I guess, as everybody knows, weight control is a huge issue now. Many, many people want to lose weight, but they're having trouble doing it. And they're sometimes going on weight loss programs that are, in some cases, doing more harm than good. We see ketogenic diets or paleo diets or extreme calorie reductions, that kind of thing. And then now the new thing is inject yourself with a GLP-1 receptor agonist, and it'll only cost you $15,600 a year, but it'll take the weight off.
It's like, why not?
And there's a certain amount of, there's a certain amount of discussion that needs to be had about how did we get here and how do we take the weight off, and why now is that we have turned a corner. We now know that there are certain foods that actually facilitate weight loss, which is a funny thought, because you'd think, wait a minute, foods cause weight loss. Harvard researchers did a study back in 2015 that I think I want to credit them with a real breakthrough. They looked at more than 100,000 people, and they found that the more they ate of certain foods, the more weight they lost. And that's completely counterintuitive, because the more you eat of anything, you should be gaining more weight. I mean, no matter what it is. And that is not what they found, either by the effect these foods have on your appetite, so that they satisfy your appetite sooner, or by their effect on your metabolism, or some other mechanisms. We have found that certain foods actually make weight loss much easier, and they really facilitate it. And the more you bring these foods in, the better. And they are simple, everyday foods. It can be berries, it can be cinnamon or ginger or hot peppers, different spices, a lot of different ingredients. And I thought, darn, this is fun. Because instead of telling you, restrict calories, don't eat this, avoid carbs, I'm going to say, no, eat my French toast, because it's got blueberry syrup, which is blueberry is a power food. It's got cinnamon on it, which is a power food. Or have my Southwest chili, which is made with beans, and the capsaicinoids from the peppers are going to ramp up your metabolism. Have my carrot cake, because carrots have beta carotene in them, which has that effect. So I want to salute Dustin Harder and Lindsay S. Nixon. In fact, let me just show you.
Yeah.
This is the cover of the book. And Dustin not only did half the recipes, and Lindsay did half the recipes, but Dustin did all this food photography. And when he sent me these pictures, I had to say, look, Dustin, this is like 2 inches away from food porn. And he said, basically, in essence, that's the idea. We're not afraid of food. We are enjoying food. Yeah. So anyway, this is the Power Foods Diet. And between Lindsay and Dustin, they just did a great job. And it's designed for people who don't want to spend a lot of time in the kitchen, but they want something great. And it's something that makes them healthy, the recipe that's really going to work, that's going to taste great, but will power the weight off. And that's what's been happening. So people have loved it. We've been working with lots and lots of people who are losing weight in the funnest possible way. And of course, as you know from your practice, when people lose weight on a healthy diet, everything else gets great too. Their digestion gets better, their cholesterol comes down, their blood sugar comes down, their blood pressures come down, they start throwing their pills away. Their spouse says, honey, whatever you're doing, I want to do it with you, because this is, it's transforming our lives. The benefits are just enormous. So it's the funnest book I've ever written, I have to say.
A lot of times when I talk about weight loss with a patient, and whenever they bring it up, and it's usually time is always a factor, cost is always a factor, and how fast are we going to arrive there? And when you're able to introduce a more natural way for them to lose the weight and have positive side effects, and they're able to see the results and it's sustainable, then that's more likely for them to stick with it, as opposed to the alternative where, the new Ozempics and Wegovy's, I have to constantly take a Zofran because I'm constantly nauseous, right? So there's always a trade-off, not to mention to the costs. Just had another patient that came in a few months ago. It was, I think, in the range of $30 to $50 in terms of copay. And then it went all the way up to like $250 plus. So I love the fact that you made this book with that in mind.
Regarding costs, we did a research trial with 244 people, half of whom were following effectively this diet, getting the animal products out of their diet, keeping oils really low. And the other half were asked to stay on their normal diet. They were randomly assigned. So 122 in each group. And we tracked their weight. We tracked their metabolism and everything. Their metabolism went better. It got better. They were burning calories faster. They lost weight very effectively. Their lipids improved. But we also looked at their food receipts. How much money are you spending? Because your average person thinks, kind of what you were sort of hinting at, that people are worried that healthy eating's got to cost money. And so we tracked that. And what we discovered was that a person on a healthy diet, let's say you're on a totally plant-based diet, you will be spending more on vegetables and on fruits and on beans, but you're spending less, or really none, on cheese and meat and greasy junk. And so the net average was the average person was spending 16% less on foods doing this method. And so for one person, that's about $500 a year. Family of 4, you're saving enough money for a great vacation every single year. I mean, let's face it, beans are cheap food. And you could say, well, okay, so I'm saving $2,000 a year for family of 4. You could put that into your next Las Vegas vacation. Or you could say, well, I'm going to buy better food. I'm going to buy only organic. I'm going to get some new cookware. I'm going to whatever you want to do. But
reinvesting
that's money in your pocket. And we also realize that, I mean, there's always problems of every kind, that when people try to change their diet, they'll run into a wedding reception I was invited to where there's nothing to eat, or a restaurant that doesn't understand my request. All these problems will come up. There are always solutions to them. They're easy to do. So what we always do is we show people how to do it. And Power Foods Diet has killer recipes. I mean, they're fun, and shows you how to do it at restaurants. But the other thing is I always guide people to find somebody to connect with. And it can be us. We'll do a Zoom with a group every week just to answer the questions that are getting in a person's way. Because anytime anybody changes any habit, whether it's smoking or drugs or alcohol or food, you name it, we're going to get off track. And so people need a little kind of hand on the shoulders before you're really comfortable on your bike. And so that comes.
Awesome. Was there, when you were preparing for this book, was there anything that you were surprised about that you learned that you hadn't before when preparing for this book?
Oh yeah, everything. I mean, whenever I write a book, it's not just the same stuff I already do in a new cover, despite the fact that the pictures are killer great. But no, everything about it is new. For example, there are, in fact, well, first of all, there are the foods that ramp up your metabolism. Let's just share this with you. At the top of the Harvard list, I mentioned the Harvard team found that certain foods cause weight loss. The top of the list was blueberries. You think, blueberries? How can that be? But it was true. The more people ate, and other berries too, like raspberries, strawberries, but the more blueberries you ate, the more weight you lost. Well, blueberries are blue. The blue color comes from anthocyanins. Anthocyanins are antioxidants. And 2 years after the Harvard study, researchers in the UK brought in identical twins. They brought in 2,734 identical twins.
Oh, wow.
And yeah, they did a great study. Well, and why are you using twins? You're using twins because you want to keep genetics constant.
Yeah.
You want to take it out. So what they found is that everyone got a DEXA scan, which shows your body composition. Within each twin pair, the twin who ate the most anthocyanin-rich foods had substantially less body fat, and specifically 9% less abdominal fat compared to her genetically identical twin sister. So, okay, and by the way, it wasn't just blueberries. Anthocyanins are in other berries. The red blush on a pear, that's anthocyanins. Grapes have them. Grape products do as well. So the question is, what the heck are they doing? And what we believe they are doing is that the anthocyanins affect your metabolism so that you're burning calories slightly faster. Cinnamon does something similar. Cinnamon contains an aldehyde, which when you consume it, and by the way, the cinnamon to get is Ceylon cinnamon. I would not get Saigon cinnamon, Indonesian. I mean, they're all okay, but when you consume a fair amount of them, these other cinnamons are actually cassia, and I think you're going to see liver toxicity if you consume them a lot on a daily basis. But Ceylon cinnamon is the one you want. It's great, and it's a metabolism booster as well. So all these were surprises to me, and I think one of the biggest and potentially grossest surprise was a really good study done at Tufts University, which is a great research center.
Yes, great.
It's phenomenal in Boston. But what they did, they brought in 90 people, and they asked half of them to eat white bread and the other half to eat whole grain bread. But they collected stool samples from everybody, kind of looking through. And what they discovered is that the whole grain bread has fiber. Fiber going down your digestive tract. It's plant roughage. As it goes down your digestive tract, it acts like a sponge that absorbs the calories you haven't yet brought into your body, and it carries them out with the waste. So you're losing about 100 calories a day from the high fiber diet. Again, the fiber grabs calories you have not absorbed. It moves along the intestinal tract. It goes out into the toilet, and you flush 100 calories away. Now that's not a lot. but that's just that one change. From the metabolism boosting effect, you get another 200 or so. And from the appetite taming effect, you get about 200 calories off too. So this is why using the power foods as part of a plant-based diet, and don't get me wrong, this is not just plant-based. I mean, potato chips is plant-based. But what I'm saying is it's using specifically the foods that we know will impact your weight. When you do this, the weight loss is automatic, it's permanent, and it's easy, and it's fun.
I love it. One of the things that I implement in my practice is measuring people's waist circumference, which is not normally done when you're acquiring vital signs. And I also talk a lot about poop and the quality of poop. And a lot of patients, are just very taken aback because I talk a lot about poop. So it's very, very important. And I also relay to them that 97% of Americans are just fiber deficient, not protein deficient, because we're so obsessed with protein. So I'm really glad that your book emphasizes all different aspects and newer research to hit home that, hey, there are great ways for weight loss, they're sustainable, and this is what we found. In terms of the horizon, we are at a very, what I call, critical stage in terms of not just health on an individual level, but also community and planetary as well. Having the work that you've done so far, the experience you've accumulated, and working at so many different levels in terms of federal, in terms of all the way down to advocating a lot of educational need for our medical students and residents. Where would you say in 3 to 5 years are we heading? Are we optimistic? Are you optimistic about where we're going in terms of the state of health?
I'm neither an optimist or a pessimist because we're going in two different directions. Overall, our population is in some ways worse than ever. You only have to look back a generation to see we've now got more weight problems. We've got diabetes we didn't have before. The environment is clearly degrading. We've got more problems than ever, and we're exporting them quite vigorously to other countries. But you can be optimistic in that also within an overall kind of sinking ship, there are more health conscious people than there have ever been. And all you have to do is go into the Safeway or the Publix or the Kroger or any food store and look at the dairy case. It used to be a dairy case. Well, now there's almond milk in there, and there's soy milk and rice milk and hemp milk and all these much healthier products that weren't there before, and they're just crowding the bad stuff out. And Americans know about what a veggie burger is and things that we didn't know before. And there are more and more people, including, yes, some doctors, who are getting health conscious and are learning about healthy foods. And so our challenges remain. But the number of allies that we now have in fighting this battle is bigger than it's ever been. And I want to say also the American Medical Association, which a generation ago hadn't really taken the nutrition issues in hand, has now adopted policies that we brought forward to say that hospitals, for example, should not only be serving healthy food, but they should be serving plant-based meals. They should make them available. They should dump bacon and sausage and not serve them at all. Schools should be serving plant-based meals. Now, this doesn't mean that everybody's jumping on a vegan bandwagon, as they should, but it does mean that good progressive thought is something that we're seeing in evidence by a great many doctors, and I'm glad to see it.
Awesome. So closing out, is there, just again, thank you for your time and the contributions of you and your team has made so far. Is there any last takeaways that you want our audience listeners to take away from your book? And anybody that hasn't heard or know anything about PCRM, do you want to plug them?
Oh, well, thank you for asking about that. A couple of things. I guess I would encourage people not to be shy. The number of things that get better with healthy eating is broader than you'd imagine. A generation ago, we did our first study on women's health, where we looked at ordinary menstrual cramps and found that by getting the animal products out of your diet and keeping oils low, you could change estrogen levels in the body, and that change could cause cramps to more or less go away. Then we started to look at endometriosis, seeing similar things. And then we applied this to menopausal hot flashes. And the combination of a vegan diet, completely avoiding the oils, and adding a half a cup of cooked soybeans every day was about as powerful as hormone replacement therapy, with all good side effects, not bad side effects. So we've been applying this to migraines and all kinds of other issues, apart from weight and diabetes and lipids and the usual things. The other thing I would say is I would encourage people to jump in. When people make diet changes, it's a good idea to really try it. Don't be shy. And sometimes doctors are a little bit shy. They'll say, well, I want to meet you where you're at. Mm-hmm. And so let me, just introduce you to one healthy thing at a time. We're going to go slowly. I meet patients where they're at, but where they are at is the emergency room. I need to cure them. I need to work with them. So we take their hand and we jump in the deep end together. And in other words, I want to cure you, and I want to cure you now. Because if I can put you on an optimally healthful diet and make you love it and help you to see foods that you're going to really enjoy, and I make your symptoms go away fast, you just got this humongous reward and you want to stick with it, which you're not going to get from baby steps. So we bring people in, we give them 1 week to learn about the healthful foods, and we show them how to do it and what the healthful foods might be and what you might get if you're at a fast food restaurant or your favorite Italian or Chinese restaurant. We'll find these foods. And then for 3 weeks, we do an immersion, all healthy foods all the time. And everyone says, okay, I can do it. 3 weeks, I can do anything for 3 weeks. And they've already got their healthy foods. They already know because they picked it out in the first week. And at the end of 3 weeks, they're a new person. They haven't lost the 80 pounds they need to lose, but it started. And their tastes have changed. And they feel great. And so I encourage people to think assertively. Let's go for it. But always maintain a short-term focus. You never have to burden yourself with, for the rest of my life, I'll never have another double bacon cheeseburger. Don't think about that. Think about this month or this week or this day, whatever it is. Focus on the short term. That allows you to really do it. That gives you a bang up great reward. And the last thing that I always ask of people is share it. Share what you learned. Because your family has the same issues you do. Your kids are going to have the same issues too. So share them, share a little knowledge, share some recipes, share my carrot cake, whatever it is. And if we do that, we can break this cycle that we're seeing now where bad habits continue to be perpetuated.
Yeah, thank you. That's a really beautiful way of framing everything together. One of my great discussions with patients is, well, my mom and dad had X, Y, and Z, hypertension, cholesterol, diabetes, and my grandparents had the same thing. So it's almost like when they say it, it's almost like there's nothing I can do, right? And it's out of my control. So I'm glad to know. I mean, having been in, for example, lifestyle medicine personally myself for so long, and knowing the work that you've done and your team has contributed, it gives me an incredible amount of confidence to be able to share with my patients. So thank you again for writing this book, and I'm sure you're going to be writing a lot more books in the future, and the work that you've contributed thus far, you and your team. So thank you so much for being here with us today.
Well, right back at you. Thanks for all the great work that you're doing. And thank you for spreading the good word, not only to your patients, but to so many people who benefit from this information. So thanks so much.
Awesome. Guys, thank you so much for watching another episode. If you like this, please like, comment, and subscribe. And if you felt like this was a benefit for someone else, please let them know. And until then, please say goodbye to Dr. Barnard. Bye. Hey guys, we hope you enjoy that episode. If you like that, please like, comment, and subscribe. And please follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify Podcasts, and anywhere that you listen to your podcasts. And if you felt that this was a benefit for someone else, please let them know. And we'll see you on the next one.